Today is the release of Season 2 of Loki on Disney+. And a lot of people really enjoyed Season 1 to the point that they think it's actually the best thing that has happened as terms to the MCU on Disney+. And of course, with a lot of hype going into the second season, and most likely there being a set of Funko Pops, I'm DK Wrestler for those that don't know. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a top 10 list of Loki Funko Pops from Season 1. So let's get right to it. So coming in at number 10 on my list, it is Mobius. This is a really decent Funko Pop. Very plain and simplistic though, which is why it's at basically the bottom of the list. But nonetheless, it is one of the main characters that is basically always side by side with Loki throughout the show. Of course, this character is played by none other than the legendary Owen Wilson. So that also plays a huge factor that Owen Wilson makes an appearance in the MCU, since I believe he had never been in any MCU project before Loki. And it's basically identical to what the character would look like, especially with the shading of his gray hair, where it's a little bit more dark near the roots, but while on the top there, it is basically white. Coming in at number 9 on my list is the Box Lunch exclusive Classic Loki. Now this is pretty decent. It's obviously one of the variants of Loki that we see near the end of the series, so you obviously know about the group of different variants of Lokis that obviously the regular Loki sees, and this is one of them where it's based off of the comic book version of Loki with the exact same outfit. I do like the posing involved where the arms are crossed, and then you do have a bit of a facial expression also. So I do like the idea that, of course, they added the comic book version of Loki into this, considering that this was kind of the start of the whole multiverse idea as terms to the MCU with the Loki series. So of course you had to have different Lokis, even if one is a comic book version. Coming in at number 8 on my list is the Target exclusive Loki and Sylvie moments. Now this is pretty decent. Of course, this was one of, I believe, the final scenes throughout season 1 of Loki, where of course I believe Loki and Sylvie are like kind of finally professing their love for each other while everything's kind of going off. It's really cool that they did end up making a moments of this, especially because this is one of the newer Loki pops. So I do enjoy that they made this. It is a bit simplistic, but at the same time, it is capturing one of the better moments as terms to the Loki series into pop form here with Loki and Sylvie, so that's pretty cool. Coming in at number 7 on my list is the San Diego ComicCon 2022 exclusive He Who Remains. Now this was a pretty cool pop to see, especially because later on we would see He Who Remains variant known as Kang the Conqueror, who is basically the main villain of the MCU, or at least I think he still is, even though there is controversy around Jonathan Majors, who had played Kang the Conqueror. And I believe he actually plays this character too with a different look on his face, and I really like how they did this. Obviously you have the purple jacket, the green outfit, and then he has the partially bitten apple in his hand. That's pretty cool. And then you have the facial hair around him, because I believe he was completely shaven as terms to when he played Kang the Conqueror in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. So it was really cool to make this pop as a Comic-Con exclusive, because it was one of those memorable moments, and it was a very obscure character compared to, let's say, the different kinds of Lokis they made for this lineup, but I knew it had to be in the top 10 list because of how obscure it was. Coming in at number 6 on my list is the CCXP exclusive President Loki with Alligator Loki. Now this was a really cool pop, especially because even though we had a President Loki previously for the lineup, we had gotten this one now that also features Alligator Loki, which technically in a way has 4 pops when you have Alligator Loki with another character. And this was really cool because it is the moment where I believe this President Loki is kind of the bad Loki out of the different variants, and then Alligator Loki jumps up and bites his hand, I believe, from what I last remember, because I still have not seen, well, let me rephrase that. I've seen Loki season 1, but I have not seen it since it first aired. I've only watched it once through, so my memory is a little bit dull when it comes to remembering what exactly happened in Loki, but I do remember this specific moment where Alligator Loki basically saves the day and attacks President Loki here. So that's really cool that they pulled this off. You do get to see this facial expression on this pop, also to show that this President Loki is very angry at what Alligator Loki is doing. Coming in at number 5 on my list is the Hot Topic exclusive Alligator Loki. You knew at some point that this pop was making it on the list because it was probably the most popular variant of Loki throughout the series. I mean, it almost reached the heights of popularity like Groot did back in 2018, and of course Grogu / Baby Yoda / the Child did. But I think the way that this pop was executed is why it didn't make it any higher, and I'm not sure if it's because of the fact that this pop is a bobblehead, considering that due to licensing issues, all Marvel pops have to have bobbleheads, so it might be that factor in how it kind of looks awkward with the bobblehead, but nonetheless, the fact that we do have Alligator Loki is cool, but the fact that I felt like it could have been a little bit better is why it's only at the middle of the list and not higher. Coming in at number 4 on my list is the Walmart exclusive glow-in-the-dark Sylvie, and this is a pretty decent pop. I love the look of this. Of course, there is the common version, but with this one, you have the eyes and the weapon in her hand green, not even putting a black light to it, but to know that when you put a black light to it, it does give that glow-in-the-dark effect, and as you may have heard me say a bunch of times on this channel, green is an amazing color when it comes to glow-in-the-dark, so having this on this pop is cool and it makes it very unique. Coming in at number 3 on my list is the Funko Shop exclusive metallic Kid Loki. Now this is really cool. This is also one of those popular Loki variants that a lot of people were talking about, and I chose the Funko Shop exclusive one over the common, considering that I think the metallic specification actually made sense for this pop. Of course, Funko has this tendency of adding specifications that don't make sense as terms to pops just to sell another molding of that exact character, but in this case it makes sense considering that it brings out the shininess as terms to his armor, the headwear, and especially the sword that he's holding in his hand, and of course, again, it is holding Alligator Loki, which I mean, having that little version of Alligator Loki instead of the regular one is kind of a thing you think of where it's like, oh, maybe I don't need to get that Alligator Loki because it technically already comes with this Kid Loki, and that I technically have 2 in 1 already instead of buying 2 separate pops. So that's really cool, and overall, it is one of the more popular Loki pops from what I last remember, and a lot of people were hyped about this pop when it released. Coming in at number 2 on my list is the San Diego ComicCon 2022 exclusive glow-in-the-dark 10-inch Ms. Minutes, and this is pretty sweet, especially because a lot of people were requesting way after the show was over to see a regular Ms. Minutes pop, considering that the only way you can get it is in a pop and buddy with Ravonna Renslayer. So it was really cool that we finally have it, but the only reason that it is at number 2 and not at number 1 is because I don't think everyone wanted to have this pop as a 10-inch figure. I think we could have gotten a way of having it as a regular 4-inch figure, and a big example that I can compare this to, the Time Wizard pop from Yu-Gi-Oh!, where there is a regular 4-inch version, and then there's kind of the Pop and Buddy version coming out soon with Jinzo. So I feel like they could have pulled off Ms. Minutes at this point way beforehand as a regular 4-inch pop instead of a 10-inch pop, especially because 10-inch pops take up so much space in your collection. So I could see people, even though they wanted to get this pop, not getting it because it takes up so much space when you can buy so many 4-inch pops for your collection that take up less space than a 10-inch would. And before we make it to my number 1 pick, I'm going to be mentioning honorable mentions as terms to this lineup because there were a lot of cool pops. So the first honorable mention I have here is the Target exclusive Black Light Sylvie. The black light colors are pretty decent. Of course, the yellow has to match her blonde hair, so that makes sense. The blue skin, I'm not exactly sure how I feel about that, but nonetheless, I kind of like the idea of it blacklight, but it didn't really need to be blacklight. I like this one better than the common one, but I obviously don't like it more than the Walmart exclusive one. Otherwise, this would have been on the list and not the Walmart exclusive we talked about that took, I believe, the number 4 spot on this list. The second honorable mention is the Ravonna Renslayer with Ms. Minutes, and that's because of the fact that, of course, we do have Ms. Minutes here, which I feel like was the selling point as terms to this pop, but but I feel like not a lot of people really cared about Ravonna Renslayer all that much, which is a reason why a lot of stores, I did see this fly off the shelves, but at the same time be shelf sitters because they want the Ms. Minutes, but they don't want Ravonna Renslayer. And coming in at number 1 on my list is the Target exclusive Frog of Thunder. Now, I feel like a lot of yous might be surprised at this, considering that I feel like maybe not a lot of people would put this as number 1, but I put it as number 1 because of how obscure it is compared to not only the Loki pops in this set, but overall, considering that the whole shape of the pop is basically based off of this jar, and then the actual Funko Pop is inside of this jar, which is a very obscure way of making a Funko Pop, and especially because it is Frog of Thunder, you can tell that obviously it is not like a version of Loki, it's actually technically a version of Thor. Anyways, guys, that's gonna be the end of today's video. If you enjoyed my top 10 list of Loki Funko Pops for the MCU series, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know your favorite pops down below, and let me know if you are planning to watch season 2 of Loki. But anyways, guys, I hope to see you guys in the next video. 1, 2, 3, I'm out of here.